National Security Advisor Mike Waltz yesterday dodged a question on whether Vladimir Putin is a dictator. Waltz was also pressed on the president's comments about the war in Ukraine and how it squares with his own past criticisms of Vladimir Putin. Let's take a listen.
The president has called Zelensky a dictator. Does he view Putin as a dictator? And does he want Zelensky out of power? I know he's called for elections.
Look, President Trump is obviously very frustrated right now with President Zelensky. The fact that that he hasn't come to the table, that he hasn't been willing to take this opportunity that we have offered. I think he eventually will get to that point, and I hope so very quickly.
Who does he think is more responsible for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Putin or Zelensky?
Well, look, his goal, Peter, is to bring this war to an end, period. And there has been ongoing fighting on both sides.
You wrote in an op-ed in the fall of 2023 that, quote, Putin is to blame, certainly like al-Qaeda was to blame for 9/11. Mm-hmm. Do you still feel that way now, or do you share the president's assessment as he says Ukraine is to blame for the start of this war?
Well, it shouldn't surprise you that I share the president's assessment on all kinds of issues. What I wrote as a member of Congress was as a former member of Congress. Look, what I share the president's assessment on is that the war has to end. This is a president of peace, and who here would argue against peace?
Okay, so you do.
Embarrassing. Meanwhile, President Trump's special envoy to Ukraine met with President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday in Kyiv, but a joint press conference between General Keith Kellogg and Zelensky was canceled without an explanation. A Ukrainian spokesman later said it was the U.S. side who requested the change, that the U.S. wanted the cancellation. In a social media post, Zelensky called the meeting productive and a good discussion. He also reiterated Ukraine's desire to work toward a peaceful end to Russia's invasion. During his nightly address, Zelensky said his meeting with Kellogg, quote, restored hope. The New York Times reports that the U.S. is opposing calling Russia the aggressor in the war with Ukraine, in a Group of 7 statement being drafted to mark the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. We mentioned that earlier. G7 statement to outline Russia as the clear aggressor, the U.S. saying no. Let's bring in now NBC News and MSNBC political analyst, former U.S. Senator Claire McCaskill, staff writer at The New Yorker, Susan Glasser, and politics reporter for Semaphore, Dave Weigel. Eugene Robinson and Ali Vitale are still with us. Susan, let's start with your latest column for The New Yorker, which has the title, Trump's Putinization of America. Talk to us about what you have seen over this last week or two to allow you to draw that very sobering and scary conclusion.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, obviously, the world is taken aback and stunned to see the evidence before our eyes that President Trump has essentially caused America to shift sides in geopolitics. We are apparently now on Team Russia in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Watching that clip of Mike Waltz, you have to say that is literally the humiliation of a public figure, to not be able to look the American people in the eye and to say, the sky is blue, to not be able to say that, no, Ukraine did not bear the responsibility for itself being invaded. This is an astonishing reversal in geopolitics. But at the same time, I have to say, as someone who lived in Moscow for the first few years of Vladimir Putin's tenure, what we're seeing here inside America with the use of Putin-like tactics and the efforts to demolish independent power centers in our country, in our institutions, our checks and balances, that to me as well is something that we need to focus on. It's not just that Donald Trump has a pro-Putin take now on the Russia-Ukraine war, but Donald Trump is using Vladimir Putin's playbook on the American people.
Claire McCaskill, the stakes are much higher now because we are in a place where Russia is at war with a country that it invaded, and actually the bloodiest war since Hitler's invasion of Poland and the rest of Europe back in World War II. There are parallels, though, with President Trump's first term. We've talked an awful lot about the Helsinki press conference, where he said he trusted Vladimir Putin more than he trusted his own intel agency heads that he appointed. We talked about how other Republicans continued to pass really tough sanctions. Here, I just wrote down, we have a Secretary of State who has been a Cold War hawk. I mean, his family escaped from Cuba, so he's earned his street cred there in a very dramatic way. We have an NSA director who has always been a hawk. We saw Tom Tillis go on the floor yesterday and say on the Senate floor what every Republican or almost every Republican is saying in the GOP cloakroom. We have General Kellogg, a man who every general and admiral I've talked to that knows him feels good about him being there, believing that he's going to fight for the right thing. We've got the New York Post, of course, this morning, and we've had the New York Post for the past several days, along with the Wall Street Journal editorial page, just eviscerating President Trump's negotiating position and his statements. So we actually do have, for the most part, President Trump standing alone and calling Zelensky a dictator and blaming Zelensky and Ukraine for the start of this war. Where do you think this leads?
Well, let's talk politics here. We've got some Republican senators who know many of the things Trump is doing are illegal, wrong, and will hurt America, both in the short run and the long run. They have been afraid to speak out. They've been afraid to stand up to some of his most incompetent nominees for the cabinet. But this is a moment they can do it politically. America understands that you do not instigate a war when someone invades your country. Can you imagine if Canada invaded the United States and we said, well, it's the United States' fault? Or if Mexico invaded the United States, we said, well, you know, that really was America's fault that Mexico invaded them. So what would he have had Zelensky do when Russia marched into his country, killing people, innocent people, in order to gain control of his country? Was he supposed to say, hey, that's okay? Zelensky's supposed to go, hey, great job, Putin, take our country. And America knows that. So these Republicans have political cover. Tom Tillis did that because he knows the people of North Carolina understand that Russia is the bad guy. So what they need to do, and this would really help this country for the next 4 years, the Republicans on the Armed Services Committee, Tom Cotton, Joni Ernst, Deb Fisher, Mike Rounds, all these guys, they, Dan Sullivan, they need to do a press conference with Roger Wicker and say, we do not agree. Ukraine is the victim here and Putin is the perpetrator. And I think it would go a long way towards helping Ukraine. It would go a long way towards checking Putin. And frankly, they would have the people of America on their side.
What you see is Senator McCaskill there trying to urge her former colleagues on the Republican side reestablish that up is up and down is down when the entire thing has been turned on its head when the way the president talks about Ukraine and Russia. But even at Congress's doorstep, we're seeing that these changes are going to bear fruit. You saw Speaker Johnson, Dave, at CPAC just yesterday, basically saying aid to Ukraine is done. He heard boos from within the room. I mean, foreign policy isn't just happening on the foreign stage. It is very much happening in domestic circles here as well.
Oh, yes. Trump has, over time, replaced Republicans who disagree with him with Republicans who don't. That hasn't happened to Roger Wicker yet, but give it time. And that was the story of CPAC, is Elon Musk clearly was the star of it. But foreign dignitaries who are showing up, the leaders of kind of far-right parties in Europe, and members of Congress showing up, are really talking about how great it was for the Elon Musk model of governance, taking over and having tech guys root through things and cut them, was the model to follow. You saw Mike Johnson on stage disagreeing with the idea of a Doge dividend, for example, this idea that has come up from Musk supporters, really, that whatever savings Doge comes up with next year, there should be a check sent out to people. Johnson disagreed. Elon showed up and said he thinks it's a great idea and Trump was on board. And you've seen this pattern for years, but intense in the last month, of Republicans who do have power, who can move bills, who can stop bills, who can choose to fund things or not, going along with the entire Trump agenda. I think it's going to get tougher as they actually have to make funding decisions, as they did last night, because they have on the other side Democrats who have not a majority, but enough votes to slow things down, who don't believe that any deal they make with Republicans can survive if Trump doesn't want it to.
But that's why I call it the Putinization of America. It's not just about foreign policy. The collapse of one of our two political parties, when someone who obviously had a position of principle saying that, you know, Russia is the aggressor, is literally unable to articulate basic facts because the leader doesn't believe them. You know, we've been sort of lying to ourselves, I think, again and again. We're like, oh, well, maybe this senator this time will speak out. And I think we're missing the bigger story here, which is that, folks, you know, the Republicans in the Senate are on Team Trump. They are part of what has become a pro-Russian party that is running this country.